very eminent panel, but I've looked through their CVs and there's nobody on the panel with a degree in economics, so I think we're going to table the first question, but Dr. Pascali, if you'd like to tackle the second question.
Yes, I totally agree with you, especially we don't know what will be the effect of Zika virus infection in the long term in adults, but also in the offspring. And that's the reason we are doing research in USF and CDC following kids from pregnant women already affected. But concerning treatment, probably I cannot give information, but we are working with companies that are trying to develop monoclonal antibodies to give the monoclonal antibodies when these women are pregnant. These monoclonal antibodies block specifically the E protein of the Zika virus. The main idea would be to use pegylated monoclonal antibodies that they have a longer duration of time and give this treatment during the pregnancy. So we know that they are not going to be infected. They are protected from infection during pregnancy. That is an option of treatment that is already they are trying to develop. And the other thing, some groups are trying to use protease inhibitors to block the NS3 protein of the flavivirus and to see if there is any effect. As we use in HIV infected patients, and we use also in pregnant women. So there are new alternatives. But you know, they are in very early phase. So we need more research to test that. They go the clinical studies, phase 2, phase 3. So it's not an immediate solution for the problem we have.
I think that passive immunity has been shown to be very effective in preventing other viral infections. In pregnancy, varicella is one example, hepatitis is another. So I think that's a very good strategy, and it's one that can probably be accelerated with funding. The use of antivirals that interfere with viral replication or actually help to augment the immune response, that's going to take a while. Think of how long it took to develop effective agents in hepatitis and preventing cirrhosis in hepatitis. So that's not to say we shouldn't develop these. I think that one strategy that has been talked about globally is the idea of developing a system for the rapid testing and deployment of antivirals, because this virus is likely not to be the last that we're going to be confronted with as a consequence, particularly of globalization. And so being able to respond faster with new therapies that work against classes like flaviviruses, classes of viruses, probably is going to be a very important strategy in the next 50 years. So you guys need to start working on that.
Other questions? Yes, possession is 9/10.
Is it on?
Yes.
Jackie Dixon from the College of Marine Science here at USF. You have mentioned mosquito control, genetically modified mosquitoes, development of vaccines, which will take 4 to 5 years, and monoclonal antibodies. I didn't hear anybody discuss the use of the natural microbiome and the Wolbachia microbe that infects the mosquito, disrupts its reproductive cycle, and prevents the transmission of not only Zika, they think, but dengue fever and other mosquito-borne diseases. So are we doing anything at USF on the Wolbachia microbe?
Sure.
Yes, very much so, Drew.
Actually, most of that work is being done at the University of Kentucky in developing the Wolbachia, which are different Wolbachia strains. It's developed a cytoplasmic compatibility phenomenon that's going on there. I kind of roll that together with the genetically modified mosquito group because it's not not really genetically modified, but it's a similar sort of approach to try and induce sterility in the population. The only thing that's going on here is I have a project going on actually with filarial worms and targeting Wolbachia as well, for similar sorts of reasons. But that's in a parasite that's in Africa, that has nothing to do with Zika.
I do think the use of genetically modified mosquitoes, we alluded to already, is a really elegant strategy, and it's something that seems to have minimal adverse ecological impact. And we ought to be doing that ASAP.
Yeah, I agree with that. And concerning the microbiome of the mosquitoes, we have been working with George Lumopoulos at Johns Hopkins University, and we found out that if you modify the microbiome of the mosquito, at least it's effective in dengue infection. But we don't know anything about if we modify the microbiome and what would be the effect in Zika. But it's another alternative, and we need more research about that.
Mosquito just was by my house. Apparently angered by this conversation.
Next question. Do we have the microphones? Yes.
Dr. Pascali, you said something about the persistence of the virus in pregnant women. So I wondered how long it stays active in pregnant women. Also, at a CDC conference, they expressed a concern that these babies born with congenital Zika will continue to carry the virus as well. So what kind of information do we have now, and do we know, and do they remain infectious and for how long?
No, it's a very preliminary information, but what we know is they have cycles of anemia during pregnancy. So we were able to detect the virus during different times. After the 2 weeks, everybody said that the virus could be at least in urine. So what we saw is, depending on the sensitivity of the technology they're using, and this is what we are doing with CDC, and we were sharing this information with Susan Hill last week, that we saw that probably we can detect the virus at least for more than 1 month in pregnant women. So this is a good news, because serology tests are very, to be honest, are not very good. So if we can detect the virus in pregnant women for a longer time, we have a ability to know that if we are effective or not.
It's good news diagnostically, I'm not sure it's good news clinically, but
It's a good news for diagnostic, but not for the
Correct.
And the other thing is, can we use viral load to predict what's going to happen in the baby?
I think the other area that really does require detailed research is this notion that immunoprivileged sites seem to be the areas where this virus thrives. So the semen, testes are obviously an immunoprivileged site. Placenta, amniotic fluid, the fetus is an immunosuppressed being. And so there does seem to be some sense that these are sanctuaries for the development of persistence in the virus. And so it's a very good question, and it's one that needs very expeditious study. We do know already that when we do an amniocentesis and measure RNA levels in the amniotic fluid, it is not entirely predictive of fetal consequences. So you can have RNA present and apparently not affect the fetus. You can have RNA absent and clearly it's certainly confirmatory. If you have an abnormal ultrasound and the presence of the virus, highly suggestive that the virus caused the pathology. But the exact correlation between levels of RNA and fetal pathology isn't there yet.
Question from Representative Cummings?
Thank you. I don't remember if it was Dr. Cole or Dr. Lockwood, but I think I remember seeing that only 1 in 13 who are infected during pregnancy will have
that's a really great question. So the risk of congenital Zika, if the mother is infected, has been estimated from the Polynesian outbreak at about 1%. From the Brazilian outbreak, it's higher, 13%. Now, we don't know whether that's just the vagaries of the research, populations are different, and so forth. Also, whether or not prior infection with dengue or other flaviviruses or vaccinations against yellow fever, they're all in the same class, alters the rate of transmission. In the United States, where the population in general hasn't been exposed to any of these flaviviruses, is it likely to be more severe? We don't know any of these questions, can't answer to any of these questions. And why it is that most women that are infected don't seem to have significant fetal effects. We don't know that either. So these are really the questions we're asking each other, and we really are in badly need of research and studies to address all this, animal models and so forth. Great question.
Next question.
Jim Lindenberger from the College of Public Health. First, thank you for a really useful and interesting session. Given the rate of reported infections, what would you predict, or what's the estimate for the rate of unreported infections, and what's the rate predicted for the expansion?
Well, the rate of the unreported, if you will, would be 4 to 5 to 1, just in a very global estimate. And as far as the rapidity of the spread, that's really more about the density, prevalence of the mosquitoes and the degree of exposures that the population is undergoing. That really you see the amplification, if you will, of spread. So I think these are all each dynamics of each community is going to have its own variables that are going to influence what you see, and I think that's what we're hopeful for, that the United States is going to not follow the path of some of the other countries that have to deal with this. I think it's going to be interesting. A lot of times we don't know until after the fact. You can go in and do seroprevalence. You can actually test people if the blood tests are very good, which is a whole other aspect of this. And I think what's a piece that I'm kind of curious with over time is that now that we're doing screening of our blood supply, are we going to detect some positives through that route that would certainly be asymptomatic? So all of this, I think, Dr. Moffat talked about, 48 hours is about the lifespan of what we know about this. One advantage that I think we're going to have in terms of slowing the spread is that as far as we know, this doesn't have an animal reservoir like West Nile virus did, which was spread around by the migrating birds. And also the Aedes aegypti mosquito is fairly notable for its short flight range. It doesn't tend to move around very much at all, maximum about 200 meters. So 200 to 300 meters means that the mosquitoes aren't going to be moving the virus around very much. It's more likely that the people are, and it's the migration of the infected people that are moving the virus, mosquitoes or other animal reservoirs.
Dr. Tang, did you have a question?
Yeah, so I'm Michael Tyner from the Masonic College of Medicine. I actually wanted to expand a little bit on something that Dr. Pascali touched on, so I have a couple of questions. Dengue virus vaccines taken over 30 years and we're all in phase 2, late phase 2 trials. And you mentioned that the dengue hemorrhagic shock, hemorrhagic fever is due to this kind of antibody enhancement. I'm wondering, do you see in your experience, do you see that dengue virus people are more affected by Zika virus? So is there evidence of antibody enhancement? And as well, we've also heard estimates of 4 to 5 years for Zika virus vaccine, but I wondered what your thoughts are in terms of the potential antibody-dependent enhancement of Zika virus infection. reactivity to the vaccines?
Yeah, great questions. Great questions. You know, the first one, we don't know, to be honest, because we have dengue infection, Zika infection. We had some subjects with both virus infection at the same time. So we cannot say that one infection will protect you against the other. About numbers, I cannot tell. You know, we need more research about that. So the only thing I can tell so far is we found chikungunya and Zika double infections, and dengue and Zika infection at the same time. And the other thing we need is to follow up this person to see if the presence of dengue and Zika increase or decrease the clinical manifestations of the such. Concerning the Zika vaccine, one of the concerns that is in the public is because of the antibody enhancement mechanism, we don't know if it will give another flavivirus can increase. We know, for example, that persons that are infected with Zika, there is an antibody memory reaction against them. So we don't know if the vaccine probably will have the same effect. Like vaccinated with Zika, persons that were previously infected with dengue will have a booster effect and higher antibody. So this is something, it's another matter that we need to study.
I mean, the concern is exactly that. The whole class of flaviviruses, particularly in areas where they're endemic, present a problem both from a diagnostic perspective because of the cross-reactivity. And you know, we have this very elaborate algorithm you saw that involves testing for both Zika and dengue, and then doing plaque neutralization procedures. But you are going to have situations where they're positive for both. And so what does that mean? And the nightmare scenario from the vaccine standpoint is someone who's co-infected, rather they had an infection with dengue, they have a refined antibody response, and then get the quote Zika vaccine, and it causes hemorrhagic fever from response to dengue. Or if they get the dengue vaccine, not that that's all that effective, that they might end up with Guillain-Barré from exacerbating the antibody response that was already set against Zika. So these are the questions that have to be addressed. But the exacerbation of latent or prior immune responses by the new infection is already kind of wreaking havoc with diagnosis.
Next question? Yes.
Yes, I'm Dr. Novak. I'm in the Department of Global Health and the College of Public Health. And one of the comments I want to make is about the etymological component of Zika virus right now. The only way to minimize the risk of Zika until we do have a vaccine sometime in the future, as Dr. Ganesh said, is mosquito control. You've got to reduce the risk. And the one thing we have to look at is the mosquito that's transmitting it. I notice a lot of the panelists just say mosquitoes, and we've got to be very careful with that term. There's about 3,000 different species of mosquito in the world. And again, if we're going to address Zika transmission, we have got to start calling this Aedes aegypti, the yellow fever mosquito. This mosquito really causes us a lot of problems, and we really don't know that much about it, although we've been working on it since yellow fever outbreak days. One of the problems we have here in Florida, and it's a problem yet it isn't a problem, we have some of the best mosquito control in the world. I'm the former president, past president of the American Mosquito Control